Good Saturday morning to everybody, and welcome to HyperFit MD radio show, where age management is always front and center, along with Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin. I'm Gary Byron. Hey, Doc.
Hi.
How are you?
We're good.
Good. How was your week?
We had a good week. Nothing. We're just watching summer melt away.
I know. It's quick. Here's the thing. And I was just having this discussion, I think last night. Number one, summer always goes by so fast, right? But I don't get it because the weather this summer, other than as of late, it's been in the 90s, right? Yeah. But I got to tell you.
It's been a non-summer.
It's been wet summer. Yeah. It's been a dreary and overcast summer. Yeah. I didn't get any of the traveling done that I wanted to do. In fact, there's a lot of even day trips with my family that I didn't get a chance to do, sadly. But nonetheless, here we are at nearly the end of the summer. It's sad.
It is sad. But, when I look around, though, everything is so lush because of all the rain that we've had this summer. I mean, usually by this time of year, the trees are starting to look they're failing a little bit. The green is kind of coming out of the trees and everything, but it still looks like springtime around here because there's been so much rain.
Yeah, a surplus of rain.
A surplus, right, exactly.
Hey, we've got not only a great show, we always have a great show. I should say you always have a great show, but you have a special guest again this morning. Why don't you take the honors and introduce him?
Yes, we have with us Dr. Martin Waugh. He is a doctor of osteopathy and a psychiatrist and a specialist in
substance abuse.
Opiates primarily. Well, opiates primarily. And Dr. Waugh came to us recently. We've already talked about NAD therapy on this show. Mm-hmm. And we've been offering NAD therapy for 6 years in our practice. And kind of suddenly people are beginning to notice. It's been in the media a few times, and there's been a couple of books written about it. This guy, David Sinclair, wrote a book about NAD, and so people are starting to look for it. But Dr. Waugh walked into our office, and actually Francesca's should tell the story because I wasn't there. I was in my office. Go ahead. Go ahead. Just tell the story, Francesca.
So Dr. Waugh walks in, and his first question was, "Is your medical director on the premises?" And I answered, "Dr. Guglin owns his practice, and he's here 24/7. His next question was, "Do you offer NAD?" And my answer was yes. And it comes from the place that Dr. Waugh is familiar with. Yeah. So
he wanted to make sure that we source our NAD at the
Springfield, Louisiana,
at the source,
clinic, the best in the country, and they found it up here, and I had been hoping to get it up here in Connecticut, and he had it up here for 5 years, and I didn't.
Look at that!
I've been doing it down in the D.C. area for 7 years.
He's been sending patients to D.C.
all the way, taking them down from here to there.
Oh man! And look at this! Wow, this is great. So now they don't have to go to D.C. They stay right here in Connecticut.
Actually, my neighbor fell, and that's why I was so intense and so desperate. I had to find NAD, and I knew I couldn't get her all the way down to D.C. So.
Yeah.
Doctor, why is there a link, let's say, between a surgeon, for example, Dr. Guglin, and a psychiatrist such as yourself?
I noticed this link first when I was training at Madigan Army Medical Center. The chief of psychiatry almost became a surgeon. The chief of surgery almost became a psychiatrist.
No kidding.
And there's really a hidden link because a good psychiatrist will get in with an intervention, have a solution, fix a defect, perhaps in the thought process or in the brain or neurochemistry, and then get out. Don't make them dependent on you forever. Like a surgeon gets in, takes out the tumor. So there's really a natural link. And then that link was further
Immediate
developed.
gratification is the link.
Yeah. Well, you get to do something that brings tangible results, and you can measure those results. And so I also got blessed by Bernie Siegel, who was the Love Medicine Miracles doctor, a surgeon who taught his patients how to feel love from the doctors and also use that to power up their immune system to beat the cancer. And he would come to our accountability groups and sing Amazing Grace. And so I had blessings from Dr. Herb Kleber and Bernie Siegel.
And we all know we've all heard of Bernie
link.
Siegel.
And now I've met this one, and I just fit with the surgeon crowd very well.
We got to make Dr. Charles Guglin a household name.
It will
Like
be.
Bernie Siegel.
It will be.
Right,
It will
yeah.
be. He has the mantle of Bernie Siegel. He's met Bernie Siegel. He knows. So
Oh. What is neuroscience?
neuroscience is doctors who are looking intently at the brain and the results, and how can we measure the results of what we're doing? How can we, if we give NAD, for example, IV, how can we see the results and empower the patient with seeing the results? So neuroscience helps us do that. I'm a member of Society of Neuroscience, and every year 30,000 neuroscientists get together. We present papers, show brain scans to one another. It's like neuro geek heaven on earth, and it's just wild and crazy. But that's what neuroscience is, and it has a very important role in validating the treatments that we're choosing.
So it's perfect. It fits perfectly with psychiatry.
It does.
How about the link? How does this link to NAD treatment? How does this link to NAD treatment, and how can we measure in a scientific way the results of NAD treatment?
Well, NAD, to break it down, is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It goes in the mitochondria and powers them up to produce more energy. Your heart beats on that. Your brain thinks on that.
Sure.
So you're giving a vitamin B3 derivative, and you're going into the body with that energy. And in the brain stem cells, in the hippocampus where we have memory, we are powering those up to make new neural nets, new pathways. By the second to third day, people who have severe alcohol cravings, they're lifted. They have new thoughts, new pathways, new neurons to work with. Now, how can we measure that? We can measure that by the activities on a functional brain scan and looking at where the areas light up and showing the person, hey, not only do you feel better, but here's your new brain. Let's keep it that way. Let's make the full break and connect to 12-step groups and all the necessary things, support, do family therapy, things that you need to do to help maintain that sobriety.
Are there differences then between structured brain scans like a CTI or a CT scan or an MRI and let's say functional brain scans like a PET or a SPECT?
Yes, the structure scans are much like looking at a building with an X-ray. You see the building. It takes a whale of a lot of damage to show a structure scan damage on an MRI or a CAT scan. So you get a lot of false normals. But the very sensitive functional scans look at the activities of the neurons. The PET measures that directly, and that's what they have at Yale. Dr. Amen is using a SPECT, a single photon emission computed tomography, but it measures cerebral blood flow, also measuring the activity of the brain. And so these are very sensitive canaries in the coal mine to tell early damage, often an alcoholic, say, won't believe you that he's drinking too much until his liver's out to here and until his skin is yellow. But you can take a functional scan and show them functional holes in the scan, and then they're convinced. The denial is broken through. They want to take the next step to make it
Why
better.
does it take that, though? Why do they wait so long?
Because they're in denial. They don't believe they're drinking is a problem. They think it's their wife complaining, and I've got a tough mother-in-law, and denial is this. I like this. I want to keep doing it. I don't think it's really harming me. You show them a picture of their functional brain scan, and they see the harm. Yeah. You show them normal. You show them their scan, and they go, "Okay, what do I need to do to not go on to Alzheimer's?"
We were talking about this before. The reason they're doing this is because it makes them feel so much better. It has to do with neurotransmitter function. And one of the reasons why you can show them a SPECT scan that shows that their brain is literally not working is because all the years of abuse has resulted in literally a complete drain of neurotransmitters. So the brain is an empty bucket of neurotransmitters. And then they undergo a round of NAD treatments, which, as Dr. Waugh said, basically replenishes. It's like pouring gas into a gas tank, really, is what it's like. And then you show them a scan 5 days later where literally every aspect of their brain, you show them a brain scan on Sunday and there's nothing going on. You show them a brain scan on Friday and their brain is completely awake, completely functioning. They're feeling better. They have more. One of the reasons why recidivism is such a huge deal in the in addictive medicine, let's say, is the overwhelming feeling of fatigue that these people have when they're trying to come off of whatever their poison is, whether it's alcohol or opiates or whatever. When they're going through withdrawal, they feel an overwhelming feeling of fatigue, and what energizes them but going back on what the substance they were using before. When they're undergoing NAD treatment, that energy comes back. Their brain starts working. Their brain starts doing an end run around this need for whatever it is they're taking. It's pretty remarkable, actually. And you can, and as Martin was saying, and apropos of your question, you can see it. Now you can see it. A CAT scan doesn't show it.
When they can see it, they're empowered to choose to do more of that.
Yeah.
Take it orally, continue their treatment, and I've seen people do just
It's
that.
almost that it's validated, that they have been presented with proof.
Yes.
Where I can
Exactly.
take your word.
Yes.
People have been telling me all this talk. Yeah. Everybody says the same thing. But the visual adds that much.
It's almost like adding an extra sense. This is the brain getting to see itself in action for the first time in history. How you sing, what you think, where your dreams are. It's very exciting. You have 100 billion neurons, and they're talking to one another, and you get to take a picture of it and show them, and it's like they recognize their face. They recognize where the energy is. They recognize this is them. It's deep and it's visceral, and it's very empowering.
Off topic, really, just for 1 minute. And please pardon if the question is just ridiculous. Is
No question is ridiculous.
Is there only so much your brain can absorb?
When you think of the 100 billion neurons, more than stars in the sky at night, in the Kansas sky, and there's just no limit to that. There's no limit. What is our limit is our thinking. That there is no limit in what we can absorb. I'll give you an example. You're driving home. Your brain has memorized all the potholes.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't
Sure.
know it. And it's doing it all on its own.
Subconscious.
It's incredible. The memory is, you're taking in all of this, and your novel neurons are on, and you're taking all this information in. And you might think you're only getting maybe a quarter of it. You're actually getting all of it.
Do you get
can
to a certain
resource it.
age, though, where your memory, you can't remember as much as you used to?
You can.
I'm not
You
talking
can.
about losing your memory. I'm talking about new information or new things.
It's a very interesting question. We thought up until the 90s that we didn't have new brain stem cells that were making and birthing new neurons. But we found out that we have them.
The whole concept
primarily
of-
in the hippocampus.
The whole concept of neuroplasticity, something
Yes.
that nobody believed in until the 90s, which is really apropos of your question.
Right.
There are parts of your brain that are switching on and switching off all the time. One of the side effects of pharmaceuticals has to do with the complete unknown, the complete unknown effect that they have on that neuroplasticity. Some of the problems that come with some of the things that people take and so on and so forth. It's something that nobody believed until just a few years ago, the fact that parts of your brain are turned off and then turned on based on a simple thing as driving home.
It's just bizarre how we can forget something that we experienced, maybe 20 years ago or maybe 20 days ago, but you can remember what you did, earlier this morning, or vice versa. You can't remember what you had for breakfast this morning, but I can remember that day, my last day of college, when we all went out to the diner and but so how does that even manifest?
Well, when we have important emotional experiences, like my wedding,
Sure.
for instance, it's 39 years ago, and yet I remember vividly the look, the feel, the joy, all of that stuff, her walking down the aisle, all of that, I remember it vividly because there was so much emotion in it.
Sure.
And so the more emotion you recruit, the more neurons you've laid it down on, and the more easily that memory is accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And her name is April.
Hello, April. I got married. It'll be 4 years for me this Columbus Day weekend.
Congratulations.
How did Dr. Daniel Amen, MD, how did he start his 9-clinic system?
Interestingly for me, Daniel Amen, I knew when I was at college, and he was a medical student. And so when he said, Martin, I've got a functional scan machine out here in California, and I've got 100 scans on it, and I'll give you all the research time you want. I could never get time on the Yale PET scanner for research because it's so busy, and there's so
Everybody
many
wants
good
it's over there,
competitive grants. So I went to California with him, and now 9 clinics later, 160,000 functional brain scans later, Daniel has become quite well known. He's published many books. His latest, The End of Mental Illness, is a great reference guide. I highly recommend it. But he started using SPECT scans to measure changes in the brain, and said, first do no harm. Let's make the brain better. Let's don't just throw neurotransmitting, changing chemicals on it. Let's see how we can best improve the function of this brain. It also moved things away from shame and stigma to empowerment of, hey, your brain is not working right in this region. And the family system suddenly has a deep forgiveness. They see a defect on a brain scan. They go, oh, that's why they blow up in anger. Yeah, you need to calm that little hot spot down. When I got my mom and dad on the scanner in 1997, that was worth my whole psychiatric career.
Right.
Just to give my parents understanding about how their brains were working.
Could they comprehend everything?
Absolutely,
Good.
every part of it. My dad saw a right front spot. He said, "That's like yours, Martin." And I said, "Yeah." And so we had bonding, and he was able to take a little medicine, Lamictal, for the hot spot that made the temper. And he had the last 15 years of his life with my mother, the most joyous they had in their marriage. So yeah, that was worth it to me. They're now in God's hands.
That's a moving story.
But my
actually.
mother and father, Bob and Shirley Waugh, they were largely responsible for setting me free from the farm and letting me go to medical school.
You grew up on
Kansas
a
farm.
Oh,
Kansas
yeah. Okay,
farm.
that's all there is out there. Corn, right?
The only Waugh grandson that was supposed to take over the farming, and Dad said, "You be what you want to be."
No,
And that was my father.
Clean your fingernails and then go be what you want to be.
Yeah, that's right. That's how it should be. Folks, you are listening to HyperFit MD radio show. Or front and center, as always, age management, along with Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin. I'm Gary Byron. This morning, a very special guest, Dr. Martin Waugh. How do functional brain scans aid in the diagnosis and treatment of mental illness?
They don't do the diagnosing. What they do is they help a person comprehend if they have a brain defect in the energy flow. Comprehend, that relates to these symptoms. And so then if they can look at that and then fix that, either through nutrition or exercise or cutting off the alcohol or what, and then they see it come on and they see they get empowered. Those scans are like putting the power back in their hands, because that's really where it belongs. People get to choose how they want to live, and if we can empower them with this, will aid you in getting your goals again. People give up dreams in despair, and not realizing that they still have the brain power to do it if we just give them the right tools, or the right
motivation,
cutting edge medicine like they do at HyperFit MD with Dr. Guglin. I mean, the NAD, it's not only that, they're right on the cutting edge. That's a surgical pun. But why are the surgeons ahead of the psychiatrists here in Connecticut? It's bothering me. But I love it.
How do you stimulate the brain? Are there exercises? Are there well, we're talking about last week we talked about nutritional supplements and vitamins. What can you do to stimulate the brain?
Fall in love. Be in love with your dreams. Be in love with who you're with. get on the waveboard, love the visuals of being on the ocean, learning new balance techniques. There's so many things you can do.
What did we say? What did we say last week? That the most important supplement. What did we say last week?
Love.
We said love.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very apropos for your clinic, because that's what I perceived as soon as I walked in, and that's what I see you giving to your clients, and that is the magic that Bernie would give. He would give love, and then there'd be medical miracles. They give love and the best medical care and the cutting edge care to mitochondrial medicine, and this is the next step forward in empowering people.
Definitely.
Wow. Glad I asked that question. No, really.
Got any other good ones?
Well, it always just reinforced what we discussed last week, and when you're hearing it from different respected professionals in their field, in their respective field, I mean, it just reinforces it. Doctor, how soon can the NAD treatment, maybe for example, as performed at HyperFit MD, we'll use as an example, be paid for? Let's say by my medical insurance.
I will know how to answer that after I present to this other physician, Dr. Columba Thomas, who's an MD. He trained at Yale. He's also an internist. He's now studying to be a Dominican friar down at the Dominican House of Studies. Yeah,
friar.
And he's coming to my house this next week, and I'm going to propose that we do a study with the Dominicans on NAD, a double-blind study, and that we do a double-blind study with the aged. He also learned in gerontology, and there's a couple Dominicans that are coming over to my house in D.C. We have a house about 5 blocks from the Capitol. We're going to have a meeting and powwow about that. But my hope is, as soon as we get a double-blind study in a major center like Yale, and he has all those kinds of fresh connections because he just came from here, we'll have results within a year or two. With what Patrick Kennedy did with mental health parity on 60 million American policies. We've got the legal structure in place. All we have to do is have a big double-blind study that proves efficacy, so we can tell the insurance companies, you need to pay for this. This will cut your costs. And we need one of those studies to come forth. I'm working on it.
We were talking off air about a book, and we were talking about mental illness. We were talking about Alzheimer's, and perhaps in the not too distant future, we're seeing breakthroughs even today that will greatly impact that.
Absolutely. What Daniel Amen has done with his brain scan clinic system, for instance, he had to show the NFL football players league, he had to show that they could be rehabilitated after traumatic brain injury. So he did that with the scans, and that helped in getting the big settlement. You have to prove treatment concept, and he's done that work. So where I see this going is that we're going to have tangible, provable results from these studies, and that's going to change the way that we focus on mental illness. We're going to start calling it brain wellness. Daniel's book, The End of Mental Illness, is a paradigm shift over to what is wellness, where are your dreams.
It is a bold statement, Doctor.
It is, but he backs it up with deep research. It's a reference guide, and I encourage everyone to go get it. It's just released.
The End of Mental Illness.
By Daniel Amen.
If only.
Yeah, I was going to say, in
but
whose
you have
lifetime?
to have hope. Yeah. You have to have hope.
You're right.
First.
You're right, and you want to be optimistic, and then a cynical side of me will say, but you also have to be a realist. In whose lifetime? The end of Alzheimer's is a heck of a claim, and I know you're not saying it's going to happen overnight, but there's a ray of light in the distant, but at least you still have that beam of light.
Gives
right?
you something to aim at.
Yes, it does actually.
Perish without hope, and they get in despair, and then they go to medicating. And if you give them some hope and show them tangible results and how they can get a part of that, then you've started that. Where there's life, there's hope. Where there's hope, there's love, and then you're on your way.
I want to take this conversation full circle in maybe the last maybe minute and a half to 2 minutes. And we talked a little while ago at the top of the show about the link between surgery and psychiatry, more specifically you, Dr. Guglin, you, Dr. Waugh. Let's just kind of put the ribbon on this conversation and by coming full circle, and how this relates to HyperFit MD and bringing Dr. Waugh into that relationship with your clients.
Well, part of it, from our standpoint, we've been trying to, from patient to patient, really trying to delineate to people the importance of of NAD therapy and how it can be helpful in many different spheres. Martin happens to have captured one of the spheres that NAD became useful for very early in the game. There's lots of clinics around that do use NAD with people who are recovering addicts. But by the same token, the use of NAD in terms of energizing, brain health, so on and so forth, is extremely broad. A lot of the science has not been done yet. There's been a lot of science done with animals, not much in the way of human studies, which is what Martin's doing. My attitude has always been hope is not a strategy. But if you take hope and you add in a strategy of creating science, following the science to a final goal of helping people with this stuff, that's really what this clinic is all about.
Very nice. Yeah. Really quick, I only got 10 seconds.
You invest in your future by paying tuition. If you invest in your future by going to HyperFit MD, it's like getting a tuition, and what you do is you're helping science breakthrough.
Amen to that. Speaking of amen. Dr. Martin Waugh, thank you for your time and your expertise this morning. It is invaluable. You can check out HyperFit MD online simply by visiting hyperfitmd.com. Once again, hyperfitmd.com. And if you'd like to email Charles Guglin, you can easily do that at cguglin, CGUGLINMD at hyperfitmdamc.com. Make an appointment. Do it today. You've been promising yourself for quite a long time. Why not make that first step at area code 203-890-9777. Once again, 203-890-9777. They're located down in Milford on Noble Avenue. For Dr. Charles and Francesca Guglin, I'm Gary Byron. Until next Saturday, have a good one, everybody. So long.